Cinematic VR Crash Course.
Hello and welcome to another lesson of the Cinematic VR Crash Course. You just shot some brilliant 360 video content and now you have to copy the data from your cam to your editing station, so you can start stitching them together. Easier said than done, but fear not, I've got some tips for you which will save you a lot of frustration. Let's go! Transferring files and formatting cards isn't very complex, but it's a very precise job that you should take your time for. A structured workflow starts with a structured mind and will help others working on the project to find their way inside the enormous set of data. On set, you should make a backup of the original video files. Even if this takes some time, trust me, this is totally worth it. You don't want to be the person who's lost a couple of scenes. In our opinion, there should always be at least 2 copies of the original footage, preferably in different locations. One thing to keep in mind is that there will be a lot of data coming from your rig, and I mean a lot. To illustrate, the purple pill camera uses 16 GoPros, each of which sports a 64GB SD card, allowing us to film about 2 hours worth of high-res, high-frame rate footage. That's over a terabyte of data, which you will have to store somewhere. In the field, we use external hard drives like the Lazy Rugged with 2 TB of storage capacity in a sturdy package. In a more predictable environment with a decent power supply, we tend to use SSD drives or our Lazy 5 Big Drive. These are a lot faster and make it possible to edit from, even on set. Let's start with structuring your project. Here you see an example of our default folder structure. I like to work in different phases of the project. That's why stitching, editing and compositing are separated. Each of these folders have a project folder, a video folder and an export folder. What's in the name? Of course we use the project folder for the project files. It is important though to know which videos to put in which video folder. I see each video folder of the individual steps as files that still need to go through this phase. Or in different words, the files you will be using for exporting that phase. For now, it suffices to know that the files coming straight from your camera have to go in the video folder of the stitching step, since we are going to stitch them of course. Later on in the course we'll go through all different phases, so no need to explain further. You'll see what I mean in a bit. Depending on what kind of camera system you've used, there are different ways of offloading the footage to your computer. With systems who are able to transfer the data over one cable, it's pretty straightforward. Just go ahead and copy your files from the original cards or disks to your computer or external hard drive. An example of a one cable readout camera is the Nokia Ozo, which outputs only one video file as you can see. With the multi-camera setup you should be a little bit more careful and precise. Either hook up the cameras one by one or use a USB hub to connect them all to the computer. If available, you can use software complementary to your camera system, like the GoPro importer. Before you disconnect, always double check if you've copied all the files. Do this by comparing the size and amount of files of your original and your backup folder. If this is the same, you're good to go. You want to organize the footage from your camera by take. So just like in the example, create folders for all your scenes and takes. In these take folders, you'll need to place the footage coming from all the individual cameras in your rig. If your rig has 16 cameras, you'll need to have 16 files in each take. In order to know which file came from which camera, you need to add the name of the camera in front of the file. In this example, we'll use the name Hero4-H01-C01, in which Hero4 stands for the camera of course, GoPro camera. H stands for head and shows us which 360 camera we have used, and C stands for the camera inside of the rig. After you've renamed your files, it's time to organize them into take folders. First, create a new take folder. Now identify which files belong together by playing them back. Finally, move these files into the take folder you just created. Do this for all the takes you've shot, so you end up with take 1, cam 1 to 16, take 2, cam 1 to 16, etc. Organizing your files this way allows you to easily drag and drop a take into your stitching software. Because you're working with very high resolution video files, it can be quite heavy for your computer to process. Make sure you're working either from an internal SSD or using a server with high-speed Ethernet connections. We highly recommend using hard disk in a RAID configuration to obtain speed and safety. Because you're working with so much data, you might have to consider charging your clients for storage, since you'll probably need at least one Lazy Rugged disk per project for archiving. at $200 a piece. To summarize, you need a lot of storage capacity. We use lazy 2TB ruggeds for in the field or as a backup disk, or we use lazy 20TB SSDs on set. Create the project structure before you're starting to import your files. Rename the footage and organize all the footage into take folders so you can easily drag and drop them into your stitching software. Okay, all your files are now organized. You've heard me use the word stitching a couple of times. In the next lesson you will finally learn what stitching is exactly and why it is such an important part of the cinematic VR production process.